Hi everyone, this is the SIG Cluster Lifecycle working group specialized on kubeadm adoption. And today is the 15th of August. And yeah, let's get going and see what we have, what we should talk about today. So far, we have had 2 meetings so far, and we've talked about blockers. We've made a list of blockers and wish lists and a wish list. And I just pasted that document in the chat. And so that's one document we should go through and talk about what should we prioritize for which release, when do we have any volunteers to work on it, etc., etc. Then we have we should discuss the kubeadm face command and how stable we think it is right now and what we could do to make it more stable. And also there's a proposal for a beta API group for kubeadm. That's not going to make 1.8, but hopefully 1.9. Let me try to pull that up as well. But yeah, feel free to, if anyone has some thoughts to share or whatever, feel free to speak up in the meantime. So there we go. What do you think we should start with? Should we go the blockers and wish list or the face command first? Any preference? I mean, so far the meetings have been quite interactive. I mean, if we can get some feedback.
Yeah, I was hoping that we could, can you hear me?
Yep.
I was hoping that we could, review the blockers and wish lists, just so we can sort of remember exactly where we left off last time. If that's okay with everybody.
Yep, that's fine by me. Let's see. So first in the list we have resiliency / non-happy path, and this blocks Kubicon and COPS. It's on the wish list for Kraken. And the description is if the kubelet hangs, it could be C group failure or whatever, kubeadm basically waits forever in 1.07. This is improved in 1.8, where we have a timeout. We have some suggestions to try to PS and check if the kubelet actually is running after half a minute or so, and fail fast if it isn't running. Or we could talk to the kubelet API endpoint in some way, or things like that.
So there was a proposal earlier which should solve that problem in a way that, you know, if we had a way to tell Kubelet to create some pods, like an API that we could write to, and that API could report us back particular errors why those pods aren't being created. So I think that would be a more robust sort of path to more reliable path to fix this problem. So we wouldn't have to wait and go look in every place we could possibly look. We just have a direct channel back to us where we would get the exact error why it failed to start pods.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that pod API proposal hanged, but if that was happened, then it would help here. Just sort of from my memory back in the day when this was implemented, then what I saw would be a better solution to the problem.
Mike, do you remember where we left on that one?
It's a mess. I can drop a link to the issue, but generally you start that conversation, people start talking about checkpointing, and 100 people step in and nothing ever happens. I'll pull up the link to the docs where that's talked about.
Yeah, I mean, go on.
So in the case where, like, you know, Kubernetes didn't quite, so perhaps we could do it. Well, we certainly have a way already to tell whether Kubernetes is there to at least attempt starting some pods, right? We have like a pre-flight check for checking that. So if Kubernetes is there, we should find some way that would allow us to tell why a particular pod hasn't started, or is there such a thing? I don't know.
So feel free.
You know what I was trying to say. Like, I mean, the Kubelet has some kind of pod status API right now, which is kind of meh, and it, you know, it kind of mirrors the API. So, oh, is that the case now that actually Kubelet doesn't? Is that the case that Kubelet API currently doesn't expose any statuses for any pods before it's able to talk to the API server, because Kubelet's pod status API is like a mirror of the API server, really? Is that the case?
So it has a debug endpoint at /running pods or something like that, which we could utilize, and also it has pods endpoint, I think. The hard problem here, and I'm not sure if someone from CoreOS is here at the moment, but the really hard blocker is authorization. So basically, if we try to get to if we hit the Kubelet API, which is secured, it will try to call the API server for, like, is this person authorized to access my API? And that's kind of annoying. I think Bootkube has worked around this in some way, if I recall correctly, but I don't know how they did work around that specific issue.
Interesting.
Yes, this is Ed from CoreOS. I do remember that issue coming up with Bootkube. I don't recall exactly how we got around it, but I can check and report back.
Sounds really good.
And another suggestion, perhaps, if it all becomes really hairy when we talk about extending Kubelet API, perhaps we could consider that Kubelet could write some files to disk that we need. Like, you know, next to the static pod definition, it would write static pod name .fail or whatever, and we could read that file.
I think that's what
an alternative proposal, because, like, if the other proposal doesn't get us anywhere, perhaps suggesting something like this could get us to some kind of middle ground.
that sounds like checkpointing, and that sounds like exactly what is the contentious topic. And that's actually what Tim is working through this quarter to get some basic checkpointing.
Oh, is it? Oh, well, I was just thinking of just sort of a log file for a pod because wrapping log file of kubelet is going to be a nightmare, and looking at Docker PSA is also going to be a nightmare.
Sorry, you faded out a little bit. Can you explain again?
Because it seems like, the only way to tell, like, oh, hey, there's like a pod that kubelet is not able to start is currently like to look at the kubelet logs,
okay,
which are a huge mess, and I don't know, I wouldn't dare trying that. And then another option is like to look at Docker PSA, right? Well, obviously there's a kind of JSON format to this and a version of that, but still. Because there will be all sorts of things and it would be hard to match those pods, it seems. Well, actually static pods don't have any random characters in them, right? They have this predictable names. So maybe that's not so bad.
Okay, so I think I misunderstood you the first time.
Yeah, so no, I was just trying to think of if we can't get kubelet API to be extended so that there's a way to tell, at least there could be a way to tell whether it failed to start a static pod and whatever the reason for that was. So if there isn't a way to do that, perhaps it could write a file where it would just like a log file for the attempt of trying to start that for a pod. I don't know, just a thought. Perhaps looking at Docker PS isn't that hard because this would be about static pods and their names are we can determine what their names would be. Right? We don't have to try and match them.
The problem is that we can't assume Docker in any great sense when we have CRI.
Oh, brilliant! Does the CRI have a way of listing pod? Listing containers.
I'm not sure. It probably does, but again, we don't know which daemon where it is, right, and which socket it listens to, and all that. And CRI isn't. Oh well, it is. Well, forget that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the problem of detecting the failure early, right? And communicating to the user why it's failing. So I don't know. Perhaps we could just sort of okay, here's in this particular case, which would be 80% of the time, we use Docker, so we can look at Docker PS. And if Docker isn't used, we'll just default back to that long polling mode.
Okay, let's move on. So, AJ support. This is I wrote a doc about that. I can try to find that as well and link to it. I got interrupted while writing it, so it's not ideal. I've covered most of it, but still, of course, there are corner cases and needs to be fixed up. Anyway, that's hopefully a target for 1.9 alpha in 1.9. Golang interface. Well, you could write the stable Golang interface. This is the first time we have a chance to do this, or to promise something, is 1.8 now, when basically all the phases refactoring is done. So now we basically have CMD, kubeadm /app/phases, and all different phases that kubeadm executes in order are are there and have their public methods, which kubeadm init is just like, it just calls all these functions in order. I know Mike had a, do you want to bring that up here as well? Like the execution, what was it called? A DAG executor? Or?
Yeah, I've been meaning to get back to that. I just kind of am trying to figure out how to best model the kubeadmin execution in a way that's maintainable and that is like we have some clear definition of what needs to happen before what and what can't happen while what is happening. It's kind of a hodgepodge right now, especially in some of the like init, especially in init. It's just, it's almost, it's very bash-like Go, I would call it. I don't know if that's the correct model, but if I get some time, I'm going to try to move stuff over to that and see if it looks better. But as far as the Go API, I would like to note that it's going to be much harder to commit to stability of Go APIs than it is to commit to stability of the command line API. So I would recommend committing to the command line API, or recommend committing to stability of the command line API before we say that about the Go API.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
Is anybody like biting to start using the Go API or using kubeadmin as a library?
Here it says blocks, kops, and kubicorn.
They're both not trying to use the exact model.
I'm not sure if they, I mean, kops uses kubeadm in a really lightweight manner right now on the source code level. It will now in 1.8, it will, when like now all the phases are exposed at CLI level, kops will use kubeadm at CLI level. So I don't think it blocks kops right after this release. But
it's unfortunate that we don't have any kubeadmin integrators at this meeting. Are there any kubeadmin integrators at this meeting?
There has been a couple, like 6 last time or so.
None today.
None today, yeah. Or maybe Nick, and Ed, but
yeah, we are sort of interested in using it as we're interested in improving the experience for users using it as a command line CLI, so the Go interface can change underneath, and that's not really a concern for us.
yeah, okay, let's move on to the next one. Easier to use own Kubernetes release / non-default combination of components. This is basically why so part of like the kubeadm proposed kubeadm API that we could use instead of what we have now. As part of that, I added an image field for per API control plane component. So basically, you can specify one image for the API server and totally a different image for controller manager, but still it defaults like it always has been. This was on the CNCF cross cloud wish list or blocker list there. I definitely think it's reasonable to expose it at API level. I don't know if there are any concerns there. Just like instead of building the image name from image repository and version, it would be possible to specify it per component.
I think that's useful, especially for stuff like add-ons and pause container. I'm not sure how that would look in an API, or if that would just explode in the amount of configuration. That would be my concern.
So what do you mean with the pause image?
So stuff like, you're talking about passing custom registries?
Yeah, so passing the registry is already supported, but you can't like have a specific image for the API server if you wanted, right?
Right. I want to use a API server from my registry, but I don't really care about rebuilding the pause image and pushing it to my registry.
Also, this is only about the control plane components, just
the
API server, scheduler, control. Yeah,
individual. Okay, individual ones pointing an individual API server. Has anybody asked for that?
Yeah. So they were here from CNCF Cross Cloud Infra some days ago, and they had some requests that they're building. Like, I don't exactly know how they're doing it, but somehow like different commits per component or something like that, and tying all the CNCF projects into one CI in some way. And they had the use case where they have to specify different images per control plane component. So the like specify your own registry where wasn't enough. I mean, this is easy to expose at an API level, just like one field per, like we have 3 control plane components. So
I would question what they are doing before we implement this and make sure that it's sane and a sane request. And I worry about exploding the number of configuration always. So I want to be really skeptical whenever we introduce new configuration, because it only increases, configuration only increases in size.
Yeah, support for cloud providers running out of 3. I think this is working well already. I mean, I successfully run kubeadm on GCE using just the kubectl apply command afterwards, after kubeadm init, and it should work just fine. I don't know, like cloud provider, out of 3 cloud providers are all fine. 1.8, 1.7, I don't know what the status exactly is going to be in 1.8, but it basically depends on CSI work. So it's probably going to take some time. And we had some requests from Justin in it join replacement, where he basically wanted to have one template. I don't know if it's in CloudFormation, Terraform, or whatever, for the master, and one template for like configuring the worker. And then the init join workflow didn't work real well for him. Like, if the normal kubeadm flow is like kubeadm init on the first machine, and then if you want a new master, you can kubeadm join -- master or whatever, or just kubeadm join if you want a worker. That's probably what it's going to look like when we implement AJ support. And he said that was somehow not enough for cops, as it's hard to script like this. Only one should go first, and then like the others should follow. I suggested that it's probably pretty easy to do this out of kubeadm. Just make a simple lock I mean, in this case, external etcd is already there, so you can just use locks in the etcd API to coordinate which should be init and which should be join -- master. Does that sound reasonable?
Why is this just a problem with the token discovery or token bootstrap?
Well,
is it reasonable to use file discovery for this? It sounds like a use case where file discovery would be superior in the sense that, like, you say that when it's ready, the control plane will upload a kubeconfig to this S3 bucket, and until it has uploaded that kubeconfig, Node should loop on kubeadm join -- discovery file.
Yeah, so I mean, well, that's working well, but the problem is when we want to initialize 3 masters using the same Terraform configuration, and then we don't know, we can't run kubeadm init on all 3, right, in the same template, and we can't run kubeadm join -- master on all 3. So that was his problem. But
why does he want to run them in the same ASG? Is that his goal, to have a separate ASG there's a single ASG for masters and nodes?
So a separate one for masters and nodes, but the masters should be able to coordinate. Like, if we have 3 masters and using the same template, how should they coordinate? Like, but I think this is solvable pretty easily out of core. I mean, is this something we think should be?
I think it's a common deployment pattern where we want things to come up, and the order is not. We don't know a priori what the order is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a common deployment pattern for most automation, and we should consider it. I think we need to figure out what a central rendezvous point would look like and how these components would coordinate, and at least think it through, if not implement it as part of kubeadmin.
So my mini proposal here was to, like, well, if you want this functionality and AJ and all this stuff, we can assume you have an external etcd cluster. So then you can use kubeadm init on all ones in the template, right? And specify external etcd and, like, lock on etcd or whatever, coordinate yourself, and then they all 3 masters raise for that lock on etcd. The kubeadm instance that gets the lock in etcd will go ahead and do the init, and the rest of them will just, like, internally do the kubeadm join -- master functionality.
We kind of tie ourselves to external etcd. Do we want to do that?
I think so. I mean, in this case, I don't see a case where you don't have external etcd and you still want to use this.
Well, what if I want the etcds to run alongside the masters? I have 3 master nodes. I want to run all master components on them.
That's definitely a thing. And what I wanted to add, that I think the bit that we aren't considering here is also that in many kind of production deployments, you actually don't want to create the certificates on the fly when you provision these machines. You'd rather have those certificates checked into a Git repo and supply that, for example, or a S3 bucket or something like that. And that makes things much easier. You don't have to, you kind of, if you think of it that way, then you actually will stop having this problem, I think.
Most of the problem. So that's working since 1.6. And Nick is also working on a twist of this where you don't even want to, like, you can generate them in beforehand and just make kubeadm reuse them. and but in some cases you don't want to have the CA key touch the master or masters at all. So that's gonna be possible in 1.8 as well. Nick is working on that one. So basically, if you have generated all certs and kubeconfig files yourself, like somewhere else, check them into a Git repo or whatever, and then copy them to all masters. Without the CA key, you don't expose that on the masters. kubeadm init will just proceed as usual, but it will not like enable the certificates controller. You have to do that yourself, which is obvious.
Certificate signing controller, you mean?
Yeah.
Why is it, what do you mean is obvious here exactly?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, because you didn't supply the key.
Yeah, so
setting controller can't sign certificate because it doesn't have the key.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to run that somewhere where you have the key.
Okay, well, maybe we should be looking at an option where we can enable the certificate signing controller and add the key to this configuration. Essentially, what I'm saying is that your biggest problem was having one master being the master number one running kubeinit, and the other masters running being masters number one plus. And running kube join -- master. So the problem here is that the first master has to create the certificates and all those things. If you supply the certificates and all those things to each of the masters beforehand, then you could just start them up and you'd be okay. So I think if we kind of forget the problem of securing that key, we can solve this problem that way. And in the case of kops, there's the kops command that the user runs on their machine to create the cluster. So that process could create the certificates and upload them to, let's say, S3. And I think that's roughly what kops does at the moment, anyway. And then you supply this certificate, this S3 bucket to all the masters, and they start independently.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good to me as well.
And you don't have to lock on the etcd or something like that. That doesn't sound like a good design to me. If you're exploiting your implementation details with etcd, right? And it's always been seen as an implementation detail in Kubernetes.
Yeah. So the certificate thing here is going to work in 1.8, and it's pretty well. 90% of that's already implemented, and yeah, I mean, this was one feature request. We could probably just say that, well, you can do this. You can do it this other way, and it will just work. So cool to have that discussed. A more secure alternative to Bootstrap tokens instead of like having the public config map. I mean, this is already done in 1.6. I should write that there. That's okay. Certificate using the file, as Mike also pointed out. Certificate rotation. This is an interesting one as well. Mike, how is the status of kubelet server certs? I mean, kubelet's client certs are going to be beta, right, in 1.8.
Yeah, I sent out a proposal yesterday that addresses the security concerns of serving certificates once implemented.
Where is it in SIGOT mailing list or
Kubernetes/community?
Oh, I see.
Right there. I just popped a link in the chat. Jordan is out on vacation, I'm waiting for him to get back. It's a super short design, but I think it addresses the concerns about the serving certificates. Yeah, but I think client certificates is highest priority. So what does this block, this specific issue?
It was on the wish list for a couple of deployments. Yeah.
So without the work in this proposal, we can enable this. What we get is we can start to verify execs and proxies to the kubelet, and you can't middleman an exec. What you lose is there's an attack that is described in that design doc, specifically getting access to arbitrary serving certificates. So that's the attack that I was concerned about. Yeah, so it's really up to the deployer to decide which security concern is greatest to them. And hopefully after 9/11 proposal is merged and implemented, we can have both.
Yeah, so for kubeadm, we will enable serving certs, right? Or which?
In my opinion, the security concern is greater for enabling the serving certs than just leaving them disabled until we can centralize reporting of kubelet addresses. So yeah, I recommend reading the attack, the second attack in that proposal. It's kind of nasty.
Okay, yeah, so at least we'll enable kubelet client.
Yeah, that should be good to go.
Yeah, and we'll continue the discussion about the other one here. Certificate rotation. I don't know, do we have any discussion at all about rotating the CA key yet? Like for Kubernetes overall?
No, but we will. I think as far as exposure, it's the least exposed keys, one of the least exposed keys. To implement a CA rotation, we need to have rotation in all other components. So it's kind of an ordering thing. Definitely something that we need to discuss and in the future, but it is blocked by all other rotation.
Yeah. And also we have like API server serving certs. Did we ever like close on that one? Was an issue made? I don't remember. I mean, it has been discussed on Slack, but
not sure. The landscape is changing, especially with the pod identity working group potentially moving towards X509 as the root of identity.
Okay. Split kubeadm into its own repo. We have that in our wish list, and it's in the works after kubectl, which is gonna be moved 1.11 or 1.12. I don't remember, Jacob, but something like that anyway. So that's in tracking. E2E testing for clouds. I mean, that's not a kubeadm issue per se. Anyway, we'll coordinate with Chris and others, Nick maybe, to get things working better on AWS, like automated testing and so forth. Packet is coming hopefully soon. kubeadm API to beta, that's kind of important going forward as well. Easily run federation on top of kubeadm clusters. This should work just fine. I don't know, does anyone have any success stories or like something that hasn't worked well? The stories about that? Okay. I don't think there should be an issue, at least. So that's work in progress to make the federation test be based on kubeadm. There's a couple of guys from SIG Federation that are working on this as we speak. So it's nice to see us move forward on that one. This is due to that kubeup is deprecated and the full cluster directory. So it's a step in that direction. More documentation, indeed. That would be really nice. I'm like going through documentation and improving it once every 3 months or so before the release, but it would be great to have more writers on the team. ESA upgrade path, this is coming as beta in 1.8 with the kubeadm upgrade command. And the last one is also fixed. Do we have any others? Feel free to write in here. Any comments so far on more things we should add to this list? Okay. So just let me see if I can share my screen here. Just a quick walkthrough of the current kubeadm face command to see, like, are we happy with the status here or maybe there we go. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Cool. So the current, this is kubeadm built from head, and we have see if there we go, and we have only one subcommand of kubeadm alpha, and it's kubeadm alpha face. And yeah, so here we have what's currently exposed. The first one is certs, and that has a couple of commands. We can generate the CA. After the CA, normally the API server serving cert is generated. After that one, the API server kubelet client is generated, then the service account, and then we have, for API aggregation, we have to make a front proxy CA and client as well. This is a different CA from the normal cluster one. So are we happy with it's basically we have 6 cert key pairs and 1 command per.
I'm not actually a consumer of this, but one of the things that comes to mind is just a mental exercise of if I want all but one, I have to enumerate a lot of things. And then as soon as kubeadm supports one more thing, and I've forgotten to manually run, that phase or this phase with that, it would just be nice to have an explicit opt-out instead of all or opt-in. I think our runtime config is kind of like this. Like you can say, I want to enable star, but then exclude these things. So maybe some sort of syntax like that. If there's like exactly one key that I want to provide, but all of the rest I don't care about.
Yeah.
But again, I'm coming from the kubeadm side. I'm not actually coming from the cop side or whatever. So maybe that's not a real request.
Yeah, that might be worth taking into account. Cool.
That was a use case I was thinking about with the DAG executor to opt into making certain steps no ops, or to figure out what that API would look like. But yeah, I think that is a real use case that not just you, other people have brought that up as part of the phase refactoring.
Yeah, and then we have kubeconfig, which looks pretty similar. You can generate the admin kubeconfig with the client certificate, controller manager, kubelet scheduler, and kubelet is only for bootstrapping purposes. I mean, this is the only time we have to make a dedicated kubelet cert before we actually have a CSR API up and running, and also a user command that looks like that you can use to like basically print to stand out like this. So it has a couple of more like generic. I mean, these are profiles with like system masters as the organization of the cert, etc. This has system controller manager, kube controller manager, and such things. And this user is more generic, which now created a certificate to stand it out. Then we have anything that springs to mind there. I mean, I don't know if we strictly need the use command here or not. Any like opinions there?
What are the commands?
Sorry?
So they could be user, and is there anything else?
Yeah, so we have 4 pre-generated profiles, which is admin, controller manager, scheduler, and kubelet. And these are like required for the kubeadm init flow to run. And the user is more for convenience if you want to make user foo and don't want to like muck with OpenSSL yourself or something.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then we have
Is that usage string correct for Mark Master? It looks inaccurate based on my understanding of what Mark Master would do.
Is this an error? But we already the PR with the fix.
Yeah. Yeah, Fabrizio. And I also see I didn't rebase before doing this. So control plane, I mean, there will be a control plane here now. It is at master, but when compiling this, I didn't rebase, and I'll see. Control plane, and then we have in the same manner, like API server, controller manager, or the scheduler. Then I don't remember we had, and before that it's etcd. Did Fabrizio, which command did we use? Local, right?
etcd local,
yeah.
Supported only for now.
Yeah, so the etcd subcommand has just one subcommand, option, which is local because we don't support anything but writing a static pod manifest. That just, well, a static pod with etcd listening on localhost. In the future, this will probably change. I mean, we'll probably add some more options for deploying etcd. I don't know. Depends on like the general movement in the SIG and in the community how to manage etcd. But though, thus these two commands seem reasonable. Anyone? Jacob? Or
Are you asking about the remainder of the subcommands or just this one specifically?
yeah, so etcd and control plane. I mean, it's just this etcd, local, control plane, API server, scheduler, control manager.
Yeah, at first glance, it seems okay. It seems a little odd, though I haven't really thought this through, that if I want, like, let's say the controller manager, I want it to start, but I also want the kube config for it. So I wonder if we should actually merge these things to have a different flag that says, like, not only do I want the manifest to start this component, but I also want to generate the kube config for it. But I don't know. Otherwise, it's fine that you have to invoke two different commands to like bring up the controller manager and have the kube config for it to point to the API server.
Yeah, I think it does. If we ever add that kind of thing, it would be purely additive, right? It would not like remove anything.
Yeah, I guess.
And then we have, after that, mark master, which basically just takes one argument and tries to mark that a node with that name. It tries to add the label and the taint to that node with that name using the admin kube config. And then upload config is pretty much the same. You have to specify a config file, obviously, to upload. And yeah, then we also, finally, we have bootstrap token, which look like this. You can upload the cluster info, a file with, like, it can be pretty much any kubeconfig file with a CA, cert, and paths to the master. And it will extract those and upload to the config map. Or bootstrap token node, where we have two subcommands there, allow auto-approve and allow post-CSRs. So these are just like adding RBAC rules.
Backing up a bit, if you looking at mark master, if you run that from a master node after it's been more or less initialized, do you still have to provide the node name, or is it intelligent enough to say I'm running from a master? I should just use this current node as the master.
You still have to provide the node name because, I mean, it's more like this general utility if you want to, I don't know, graduate your master bar to your node bar to a master. You can like mark it with this. I don't know. We could be more intelligent probably to like try to auto detect things, but at the same time we've had issues on AWS where the node name and the host name differs.
Yeah. So I guess what I would be looking for, putting myself in the mindset of like a COPS developer, a kubecorn developer, is looking at these phases. It's not immediately obvious what the prerequisites for every phase are. Like I assume I could run Mark Master from anywhere, like any client, as long as I have a kube config that's pointed to the API server. I don't know if that's necessarily true. At first glance, I might assume that I should run it on the master and say, this is marking myself as the master. So do we have documentation around, like aside from the code itself that says for this phase, relative order, it should be run generally after these phases, and it should be run from this kind of host, and these are all the expectations leading into it so it'll actually function correctly?
Yeah, so there will be much more documentation additions, right, to these phases if we consider them like at least somewhat good or well designed. Then we can add like to all help outputs.
Okay. But such documentation doesn't exist today that I could review and give feedback on?
Not at present, no.
Okay, cool.
So, I mean, that's basically it. And then we have like self-hosting. This should be renamed in some way. Right now, it defaults to upload like TLS secrets, but it shouldn't default to that one, to that setting. That will be changed in today or tomorrow. Something to default to not upload secrets, certificates to secrets, but otherwise it just converts any static pod cluster to a self-hosted one. Generic manner. It reads manifest from disk, uploads, posts that to the API server, and like waits for it. But
cool.
Yeah.
As a time check, it is after 11 PST. We're at the end of the hour. I have to run to another meeting. If other people are still capable of staying, that's awesome. But just everyone check your calendars to make sure there's nowhere else you need to be.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, we are out of time. So do we have, I mean, for me, it's fine to stop the recording now and just schedule for 2 weeks from now, the next meeting.
So this is Pat. I'm actually one of the lead people on the Kraken provider. And I will say that this looks awesome. I'm not really familiar with kubeadm. This is something that we're looking to start converting over to in the next 3 to 6 months as it gets stable. So this looks great, man. I really appreciate it. Like, we're already doing a bunch of this, but I'm happy to just chuck all of the stuff that we're doing and start using this. So thank you. And I look forward to the documentation for the proper order to do this work in, and I would love to review that when it's even like a rough cut. So just tag me. Cool, thanks. I'll do that when I have that up. Okay, even if it's like really rough and you want someone to like help you fill it out, happy to help. Cool. Any other comments? Something before we shut this meeting down? Yeah, if not, cool. Glad you attended the meeting, and yeah, see you all in 2 weeks from now, the same time and everything. And yeah, happy Tuesday. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Happy Tuesday.